संतों के आगे, संतों के आगे, मेरे साथ गायो, चीज बादशाही। संतों के आगे, संतों के आगे, कौन चीज बादशाही। तू करती तू भाई, मुझ में रही ना हूँ। तू करती तू भाई, मुझ में रही ना हूँ। राम रहीम ईसा मूसा अल्लाह अल्लाह तू। संतों के आगे, संतों के आगे, कौन चीज बादशाही।
Deal with fear is to realize that, first of all, that which we fear, as you just said, even if you begin by talking about fear of judgment, ultimately at the end where we are is fear of death. And if you say to most people, what are you afraid of? And they say judgment or humiliation or shame or failure or this or that. Ultimately, if you go, okay, and then what? And then what? And then what? It always ends up in, and then I die. Even if our experience is thinking we're going to die of shame or physically die, it's, and then I die. I cease to exist. And the truth is, you are going to die. Every one of us is going to die. And so the minute that we actually, not just intellectually, but experientially, are aware that not only are we going to die, but we are dying in every minute. We are walking closer to death every single minute. And so that ultimate thing that you fear, that worst case end result of the judgment, of the failure, of the shame, of the humiliation, of the loss, that end of the line, worst comes to worst situation of then I die, well, it's going to happen. It's the only guarantee. The only way around that is to realize you are not that which dies. You are not that which is shamed or humiliated or fails or is judged. The physical body, the identity, the history, the personality, the ego, this dies. But the truth of who you are, you're not those things. And the way that we know you're not those things is, how many times has your physical body changed? How old are you? 24. Okay, so every cell in your body has pretty much regenerated at least 3 times so far. About every 7-8 years. Every cell of the body is regenerated. The skin cells are every few days. Blood cells, organ cells, longer. But the longest takes 7-8 years. So every cell of your being has regenerated. But you still say I. Who's the I? What is it that's been continuous? You've been saying I since you were about 2 years old. But when you said I at 2, and then I at 12, and I at 22, and I at 24, what's consistent? Not the identity that we have about ourselves. If I said to your 2-year-old self, who are you? You'd tell me all sorts of fun things. If I said to your 12-year-old self, who are you? You'd tell me all sorts of different fun things. If I say to you today, who are you? Give me a different story. Something connected with this fear of judgment that my identity is wrapped up into. Not being judged. Not being seen in a negative light. But that's all story. It's not who you are. So when you focus on finding out who you really are, who is the you that isn't, soul. But that's an intellectual answer. You've got to feel that. Who is the you that can't be judged? Who is the you that doesn't need to be good enough? Who is the you who will never die? The more time you spend, the more energy you spend, the more attention you spend, rooted in that, the less attached you are to what people think of you, because you realize they're not seeing the true self. And you realize they're only judging me. Anybody who judges you, anyone, is living in their own jail of judgment. We only give to others that which we create inside, right? We were talking about the love manufacturing plant. So I can only give you love if I first start manufacturing it in myself. In the same way, I can only create hell for you if I'm manufacturing hell inside of me. Which means that all those people who create misery for others, who bring about pain and suffering for others, well, realize they're creating it in themselves. They're manufacturing it within them. And so if I'm going to be judging you, it means within me is the mechanism, and it's on, and it's functioning, and it's on overdrive, that is seeing in separation, that is seeing in judgment, that is seeing in illusion, in darkness, in ignorance. And so you stopped being bothered by that. And you start feeling compassion for that. Because you realize if they're judging me, they're in their own jail. But you make sure to stop judging yourself. Because other people's judgment of us only really stings if we judge ourselves. My favorite way of thinking about this is if you say to me, "Oh my God, that is the most ugly purple mohawk I've ever seen." Wouldn't impact me at all because I know I don't have a purple mohawk. So I'm not going to worry. I'm not going to feel like, "Oh my God." I'm not even going to go like this. I don't have to do this. I know I don't have a mohawk. But if you say something to me that I'm already in doubt about myself or that I'm already thinking about myself, it's going to sting. If you talk to me about my purple mohawk, you insult my purple mohawk, I'm just going to think either you're crazy or you're blind. Right? One or the other. Either you can't literally see and you actually think I have a purple mohawk, or your eyes are fine but your brain is bad. One or the other, right? Either the eyes are bad or the brain is bad because I clearly don't have a purple mohawk. So in the same way, if someone is judging you and you know it's not true, it's not going to sting. It's only going to sting if I think what they're saying is true because I'm already judging myself for it. And this is where only when I know the truth of myself, like I know I don't have a purple mohawk. So in the same way, I know that I'm not any of those things that I may be judging myself for. I know I'm enough. I'm whole. I'm full. I'm complete. I'm divine. I'm pure. I'm love. I'm truth. When I know I am all those things, then I feel compassion for people who either their eyes are bad or their brain is bad. But I don't move through the world afraid of them. Okay. Karma literally means action. We tend to use it colloquially to mean that which you get. But those are more specifically the fruits of karma, the results of karma. Karma means action. Yoga means union. That's what the word means. Most of us tragically these days think it means a union of, my nose to my knees or my fingers to my toes. But it's actually a union of the self to the divine. So karma yoga is a union of the self to the divine by any name, any form. It doesn't matter how you conceive of that nameless, formless, infinite reality. But a union to that, to all, through action. And it's very interesting because I grew up in America, in California, and there was a saying when I was growing up in the sort of new agey world where people would say, we're not human doings, we're human beings. You should do less, be more. And I was young and impressionable, and I thought, okay, that sounds interesting. It never made a lot of sense. I had never been very inclined toward spirituality before coming to India and having this extraordinary experience on the banks of Mother Ganga. So I didn't pay much attention to it. But then when I started really learning about karma and about yoga, you realize, well, so the answer is not to act. In fact, in the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna makes it very clear you can't not act. There is no not acting. You could sit down, you could sit on your hands, you could put on a blindfold, you could stick earplugs in your ears, you're still acting. You're still doing. Because acts of omission, meaning what I'm not doing, are just as much actions as acts of commission, what I am doing. So for example, if somebody in front of me is starving, and I don't give them something to eat, well, that's an action. Most of us think giving them something is an action, not giving them something is not an action, but it's also an action. It's not doing my duty. It's not fulfilling what I am supposed to fulfill in that moment, what I've been called to do in that moment. That is also an action. Not reaching down to help someone who has fallen is an action. And so Lord Krishna makes it very clear you can't not act. And this is so clear when Arjuna says, I don't want to fight this battle. I'm going to just go off into the mountains. Fighting this is going to be too painful. It's going to accrue too much karmic fruit. And Lord Krishna says, not so fast. You can't not fulfill your duty, fulfill your dharma, and think that somehow you are absolved of action. We all are acting. So then the choice becomes, okay, well, so if everything I do is action, including sitting here on my hands with my eyes closed and earplugs in my ears, then what sort of action should I do? What to act, what to do? And karma yoga is the answer to that. What it means is use your actions to come into union with the divine. It's one of the three main paths, again, that are given in the Bhagavad Gita. The path of knowledge, Jnana Yoga. The path of love or devotion, Bhakti Yoga. And the path of karma or action, Karma Yoga. But while there are three different starting points, they all actually take you to the same place. Because the truth is, when you really love, you serve anyway. So even if you begin with bhakti, it turns into karma yoga. Think of someone you love. Anyone. Someone you really love. Don't you do things for them? Don't you sometimes wake up in the morning and make them breakfast in bed, or write them a poem or a song, or massage their feet? Something. bring them a glass of water. It's an action out of love. So it may have begun with love, but the action is the most natural outcome of it. And this is true with all of them. So gyan, karma, bhakti, this knowledge, action, love, they're just different ways into the same stream. But action is something that actually runs through it all, because engaging in a path of Gyan Yoga, a path of wisdom, well, that's also karma, that's also an action. To read is an action. To come to satsang is an action. To listen to a lecture, that's satsang. And that's karma. It's an action. To sit down to meditate, it's an action. So action is actually that which runs through it all. If I love God, I'm practicing bhakti yoga, and so I'm singing God's glories. Well, that's also an action. So karma yoga is very simply using our actions, using every minute, every moment of our life as a way to unite with God. It's also something that runs parallel to that, which is action rooted in unity. So remember, karma's action, yoga's union. So typically it's union through action, but it's also action rooted in unity. So that which I do that is rooted in my awareness of oneness is karma yoga. So it works both ways. Through the action you experience the union, and then once you've experienced the union, your actions are a reflection of that. And the beautiful thing is, anything can be karma yoga. Whatever you do, if you realize that you're doing it as a tool in God's hands, because of course this is then Lord Krishna's answer when Arjuna says, well then what to do? If I can't not act, what do I do about this cycle of karma? This cycle of birth and death? And Lord Krishna says, just surrender to me. Just be a tool in my hands. And so it becomes a path of, instead of thinking, what's in it for me? What am I going to get out of it? Instead of allowing it to be an action rooted in my ego or my fear or my indoctrination or what the next door neighbors are doing or what they're going to think. Instead of that, it's action rooted in emptying myself of all of that so that I can be just a vehicle, a vessel for the divine will to flow. And then it's karma yoga.